Hi, welcome to the latest episode of Women in Business. I'm Sophie Harris, Head of Business Development and Marketing here at Procter & Stevenson, and today we're talking to Juliet Allister, Market Leader at Cornish Mutual. She'll be talking to us about the challenges she faces in the industry, her advice to the next generation, and about the business itself. So Juliet, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us today. Really appreciate you taking the time out of your very, very busy schedule. Would you mind just telling us a little bit about who you are and what your role entails over at Cornish Mutual?
Absolutely. Thanks, Sophie. So I've been with Cornish Mutual for around 18 months and I am marketing leader at Cornish Mutual. We are a leading Southwest insurance provider, and in 2020 we did a whole strategy piece about really what Cornish Mutual was, and we've got a clearly defined purpose, and our purpose is working to protect the farming community. So what we do is we provide insurance services across the Southwest region of Cornwall, Devon, Dorset and Somerset. We're a mutual organisation, so it means that we're owned by our members, our customers. We're not by shareholders, which from my perspective is so refreshing. It means that every decision that we take from a marketing perspective, you actually think about, is this a good use of the members' funds? So it is really refreshing from other industries. You're not driven by your profits and your targets. We are there genuinely for the benefit of our members. So really, our purpose is about the farming community. There's so many changes in agriculture and farming today. So as our members and our prospects' needs change, actually what we provide and the services we do are also changing. Mm-hmm. So with regards to how my day spent, it's I think in any marketing profession, no 2 days are the same. It can be going from looking at digital, social, planning out an ABM campaign, to really looking at the needs of our members and thinking about what their problems are, what keeps them up at night, and what services and solutions we can create and provide to help them in the information that they're looking for. Mm-hmm. So that's definitely the way that the business is evolving. Is the move from insurance isn't all about protection; it's the move to prevention as well. So from a marketing perspective, it's very varied. I'm also in a great position whereby, because our audience is slightly older generation, it's not all about influencers and digital. It's very much about the traditional channels of marketing as well. So it's great bringing that all together.
Yeah, that sounds incredibly interesting. I suppose just off the back of that a little bit, I suppose that the farming or the agricultural industry is quite a niche sector, and then you add into that the sort of change in demographic as well, as you mentioned, a slightly older audience. There's been a transition, I think, lately for a very digitally focused marketing strategy. How do you balance the kind of more digital and the traditional marketing strategy to kind of speak to your audience through the best channels possible?
I think that's really just by going back to the marketing basics of what are the customer journey, what's the touch points, and really mapping that out. So having a clear, customer journey all the way stages through, your awareness, your interest, your desire, your action, and what channels are appropriate each stage. So it is really that combination of your print material, making sure that it's in the livestock markets, making sure that your website then reflects it, having that consistent messaging throughout. The shows are huge to us. So this year we're exhibiting at over 21 agricultural shows, and they are really key, because that's where our members really get together. So it's making sure that we're telling a story, and I think one of the most exciting projects we're working on at the moment is actually about those agricultural shows, and how do we tell our story. Our proposition is evolving the solutions that we've got, the partnerships, the services. So how in that space do we tell our story and get our message across? And then I suppose going back to your point, it's about that, we're already in a niche, so how do we segment within that niche? So we use account-based marketing. So we've got a couple of programs, campaigns on at the moment. One very much focused on a specific industry, so dairy, and then we've got very much another in a geographic location. So we are, I didn't say it, we are very much a relationship business. So we've got a team of 28 field. They are on the road across the 4 counties, and they will go and speak to the members, speak to the prospects, and spend time getting to know them. And I suppose that's one of our key differentiating factors as well, that regardless of their size, regardless of what the potential premium is, our team will go out and speak to the member, very much about member chooses. So if they want to see someone in person, they can. If they'd rather deal with us over the phone, they can. So I think it's what's that customer journey, thinking about what the member, what is best for the member and how they want to communicate. And at Cornish Mutual, we say the membership is at the heart of everything we do, and that's absolutely true. And it really is that customer centric and driven by their wants, their needs with regards to information and points of communication. And as a marketing perspective, it's just making sure that we've got materials at different touch points. So whether they see an ad, a livestock market, whether they pick up a brochure, whether they see our ad in Southwest Farmer or come across us on digital, then the message is consistent, and the call to action for getting more information.
Yeah, that's really interesting, because I suppose you have to be considerate of the sort of older demographic that make up maybe the heart of the agricultural community, but also you've got this new generation coming in of young farmers who are looking to obviously retain those traditions and that sense of community, but have also got their own ideas on how to establish their kind of farming business. And I suppose it's about balancing those two demographics. You don't want to tip too far into one side and forget the other, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got a couple of initiatives. So we launched a future farming program, and so within that there's the content for all farmers, where we share expert opinion, industry insight, and also member case studies. We've got a next generation group, which is about development and provides opportunities for continued learning again. So it might be a farm visit, or we had Professor Matt Lobley talk on succession and did an event on that. And then we've got the Cornish Mutual Young Farmer Bursaries, which are really about supporting the young coming in to farming and support their education through that.
Oh wow, that sounds incredible. I mean, I'm from Wales. I like to mention that on almost every single call or conversation that I have, to make it very clear. So, the rural and agricultural community is very important to me, and to see that you're supporting both the older demographic and then the younger new farmers that are coming in as well is incredible, because I think it can be, it's probably, I don't want to say the downfall, that might be too dramatic of a word, but it's kind of where you see businesses, reluctance to evolve with the times is where their marketing can kind of stagnate a little bit, and they almost, they age themselves out of competing with younger companies. And you can see that with other organisations within traditional industries like yourselves. I guess when it comes to the fact that there are all of these young farmers coming in now, and perhaps it's arguably a really difficult time for agriculture at the moment, do you think the fact that Cornish Mutual is kind of like a community-owned business kind of helps them a little bit and gives them a sense of safety and community?
I think so, and that's definitely what we're aiming for. And we've just created a new role, a farming engagement coordinator. So someone really, their purpose is to go out into the communities and create these groups of farmers and get people together, because farmers love talking, and it's been horrific over the last couple of years, no shows, no get-togethers. And it is about people getting together and talking and sharing ideas, and also there's been huge amounts of insights come out recently about how what a lonely occupation farming is. That's nothing new, but actually the numbers and the amounts of suicide within farming is horrific. And we really want to be able to support the Southwest farmers and provide services, develop the partnerships and signposts where appropriate to make sure that the access to information, support, advice is there. And I think that the internet is fantastic, but then there's brilliant sites out there, but sometimes there's just too much information. So you start looking for something, but then where do you go? And you end up spending an hour searching, but not really getting anything out of it because you don't know who to trust. There's conflicting advice. So what we're trying to build is an area where members can go and simply find trusted partners or trusted signposts, so to kind of like shorten down those steps and those click-throughs and provide the information, support and advice that they seek.
Absolutely, and I think the pandemic has shown us really the importance of trusted sources and resources that are rooted in absolute fact rather than opinion based and so on and so forth. So I think the fact that Cornish offers this sense of community to those who may otherwise struggle to access that type of information is absolutely incredible. And I guess on the sort of the pandemic and how so many industries saw a lot of disruption to regular services. I mean, every single person has been impacted. And I guess one area of that is then you have had to, most organizations have got a quarterly marketing strategy or maybe an annual marketing strategy or something like that. And the pandemic kind of threw quite a curveball into many people's annual strategy. Did you have to do much kind of like pivoting of your strategy to make sure that you were able to reach your customers?
I think that from a Cornish Mutual perspective, we were quite fortunate in the fact that there'd been a change in the board. We had a new managing director appointed. I was fairly new into the business. We had some real strategy looking at going back to the roots of what Cornish Mutual stood for. So we'd started this strategy journey, redefining our purpose just before COVID hit. So actually what COVID allowed us to do was give us the time to be very clear on our purpose, very clear on our marketing, very clear on what we wanted to achieve and create that plan. Yes, we did have to pivot because we didn't have the agricultural shows, and they are absolutely pivotal to our marketing. So what we did was we actually took a step back, reviewed everything we'd done previously, put a hold and stop to certain activity where we'd just been spending the money and potentially hadn't been reviewing it, and had a complete relook at the strategy and kept what we felt was important, but then implemented new things, and then now are really driven by our purpose and also the constant reviewing and refining and adapting and making things just work harder. So it hasn't just been kind of like, we haven't revolutionized Cornish Mutual, we've just looked at how we can evolve it and how we can make things just work that little bit harder. So COVID gave us the breathing space to be able to do that from a marketing perspective. And from a membership perspective, in COVID, our team were absolutely amazing, and we all worked from home literally overnight. The IT support was phenomenal. We have tight SLAs on the number of calls and how quickly we answer calls. We continued with that. So from a member's perspective, our members actually didn't feel or notice any difference, apart from the fact that they didn't have a physical person go out and see them. But we adapted, the teams adapted and used Zoom, or spoke to them on the phone if they didn't want a Zoom meeting. But yeah, as an overall business, we did transform overnight, but that's because I suppose we're small enough and agile enough to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But our members, I don't really think noticed different, apart from the fact the shows weren't there and we physically couldn't go out and see people.
Yeah, I was in a similar position to yourself actually when the pandemic hit. I was only about 3 months into my role at Procter & Stevenson, which was a real nice shock to the system to see then everybody, you have to retain that sense of team, but you're all spread across, in my case,
Yeah.
particularly obviously because our headquarters are in Bristol and I'm based in Wales, literally spread across different countries in some respects. How did you find that evolution of your role? As you mentioned when we were speaking earlier, the team when within a marketing environment is incredibly important to the success of the overall marketing strategy. Everybody collaborating and working together. How did you find that when the pandemic hit? Were you kind of, oh God, that take a second, take a breath, or did you just dive right in?
It's really difficult. I think, we were all remote at that stage, and I think the majority of your day was spent on Teams and Zoom. Because of the space and because there wasn't such an active marketing campaign, going on, it gave us time as a team to work together and to review and to get all the information. So I used it as a stage to kind of like information gather, try and understand what had worked previously, and then come up, spend time on that marketing plan and the strategy, and just working as a team and trying to brainstorm and get ideas, but it's just not as effective over Zoom. And I also think that in the pandemic, from a marketing perspective and creative perspective, you couldn't go out and visit museums. You couldn't go and see things. A lot of the print publications actually didn't happen or reduced in number, so there was no new creative coming out. It was a bit of a stifled time for kind of like brand new things happening to then get your creative juices flowing and think of innovative new campaigns. There's very much little to bounce off.
It's because there was we've got very traditional clients as well, the same as you, who print is such a pivotal piece of information. It allows them to access resources and understand what's happening in their community, and then the fact that all of that kind of ground to a very sudden halt was a little bit, it was quite sort of, it felt very disjointed, and suddenly, that bit of community access was kind of stripped away. I suppose from a marketing perspective, I know we talked about the sort of traditional versus digital strategies. Did you have to then turn to a more digitally focused approach and then move back into the more balanced approach, or did you kind of, I suppose, stick with, as you said, you optimized your strategy as well? So was it more a case of you slowed things down, and then when things started to open up again, you were ready and ready to go?
Yeah, I think it's, for us, it's about those members' funds. So what's the best use of that members' funds? So because I was new and it was a time for review, assess, and how do we evolve, there was no point in just being reactive and moving money. So we did slow things down and then, be clear on our strategy, be clear on our objectives and what we wanted to achieve. We worked on creating new creative and did some work with Kevin from Procter's. He was heavily involved in the strategy piece. But we spent the time creating new assets so that when coming out of COVID and things got freer up, actually we had new creative that we could go with. So it really was a time for us to create new materials, create new assets, and then look at actually what the best channels for those assets were. We did do some photo shoots towards, I think it was the summer where they had the eat out scheme, so everyone started eating out. I'm sure it was around that time, and we did some photography, and we wanted to capture photography of our real members with our field people, our field team, and so we had the locations, we planned it all out. but because of the meter, the meter or the 2 meter rule, actually the photographer had to take the shots separately. So you had the member as one shoe, and then the field person as another, and then the images have been stitched together. So the campaigns that we've still got active, actually those people weren't next to each other. They had to be photographed separately and then pulled together. It does have an impact. It still works really, really well, but you don't quite get that sense of connection that you would have had, pre-COVID.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's just amazing what you can do when you've got an seemingly impossible situation. Everybody's got the creative flair ready to go, and you're just kind of thwarted by something that's completely outside of anyone's control. And then how you can start to think outside the box to make sure that you're developing that new creative. So when things did eventually start to lift, then all of this creative energy could come sort of pouring out of Cornish Mutual, and you could almost restart a little bit and bring, I suppose so many people, and obviously I don't know that much about the agricultural industry, so I can't speak for everybody within the community, but so many people would have just been so, I suppose, for want of a better phrase, a bit run down after the, multiple lockdowns and consistently, slightly mixed messages now and again, and very difficult time for everyone. I think the fact that then you had these assets and this energy and this marketing strategy that was so based on what your audience needs at such a difficult time, all ready to go and ready to launch. It must have been incredibly rewarding to see kind of then the community almost brought back to life a little bit.
Yeah, I think so. And I think this year is the first year of a full show season for a couple of years. So last year, I think there were 7 shows as opposed to, nearer 30. And we did have new assets at the shows, and that was great. But then this year will just be a further evolution and just enhanced further. So, still it's very, very important that the members still know it's Cornish Mutual, and they get that sense of the story. But then hopefully the story that we'll be able to tell will just support them further, whether it would be their health and safety or their soil or their signposting to mental health charities. That's what we're trying to put together.
Brilliant. And I suppose in terms of the community itself and the members themselves for Cornish Mutual, have you seen, obviously it is quite a male-dominated industry at the moment. Have you seen more female members entering the community at all?
We did a feature within our future farming program of women in agriculture, and there are some amazing women in agriculture and some really senior females in agriculture, but far fewer than there are males. So it's important for us to continue to celebrate the women in agriculture. But yes, I think it's fair to say that yes, I've definitely seen less. Although saying that, we went on a next generation group to a farm, the Mitchams Oak Park Dairy in Devon, and that was really great to see a brother and sister together, bringing through that next generation. They both had different roles, but very, very equal. But then the collaboration and together, and what they're doing to the business and really building it and taking it forward is fantastic to see. And I think that future generations, we will continue to see that. Young farmer bursaries that we did, so that was last year was the first year we awarded those so we went to each of the 4 colleges, and interestingly it was 50-50, so there were two guys who won the award and then 2 females as well who won the award, and that wasn't fixed in any way. That was completely judged independently on the applications and what had been sent in. But again, that's really, really encouraging to see.
It's incredibly exciting to see the next generation of farmers come through. And I think just in general, I think more traditionally male industries, whether it's a trade, I've got a lot of plumbers and construction workers in my family, and more we're seeing, any sort of stereotype that was previously associated with these roles, whether it is a trade or within the agricultural community, they're just dissipating so much with the next generation. And it's lovely to see, women not coming into this as, perhaps I'm a woman in agriculture or I'm a woman in trade. Just, I am a farmer, I am a plumber. There's not, there's no gender differentiation between the two, and it's really rewarding to see that. And it must be incredibly rewarding for you as well, because, so much marketing and messaging and enthusiasm gets poured into trying to make sure that people feel comfortable stepping into these roles and stepping into perhaps more traditionally male roles. So I suppose when you kind of go to the colleges and when you do your outreach, does it kind of fill you with a sense of a fulfillment that you're seeing so much of a change in attitude in the next generation?
Yeah, definitely. And especially within the industries that I've been within, and I'm now kind of like with it, going to the colleges, it is more balanced, and it does seem a little bit more equal. I still think that within all the businesses I've been involved in, females on boards are definitely still the minority. Mm-hmm. But it is changing, and it's changing slowly. But I think what you said about women farmers, they don't see themselves as a woman. I don't see myself. I want to be good at my job for me as an individual, regardless of my gender, and that's only fair. And that's as we go forwards, that's what it's got to be. My daughter said to me the other day, she's into Formula One, and she said, "Why aren't there any why can't females be in the Formula One team?" And I was like, well, they are. I think they are coming through, and I think things are slowly changing. The sport, females in sport are getting more recognised and being seen as a professional career, and that move is changed. So I think that as that continues to change, then hopefully the next generation can have self-confidence in their own ability, and get jobs and positions on what they've done to achieve it, not because they're because of their gender.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I think it's really refreshing to see that perspective, to be honest. Your daughter just asking, it is a seemingly straightforward question, why are there no females on the Formula One team? And it is, when you actually think about it, there's no real reason why there can't be any female Formula One drivers. And it's the same across any industry that you look at, really. There's no reason why there can't be a female farmer or a female plumber or a female marketer or anything like that. And as you said, people should be viewed on their skills as an individual rather than any sort of skill associated with gender or any other sort of differentiating point or perspective. And I guess on that then, perhaps you've had this chat with your daughter, what sort of advice would you give the next generation to wanting to break into the marketing industry?
I think with anything, it's about working hard, and I think with regards to marketing, it's about being curious and about asking why. And you've got to, from a marketing and creative perspective, you've got to be aware of what's going on in the wider environment, and not necessarily just that industry. So, and look at market influences and understand the consumers. But I think it's about, fundamentally as an individual, working hard, believing in yourself, absolutely listening to others, but don't change you as an individual. Just strengthen yourself and evolve yourself through the listening and the knowledge and the reading that you do. Stay true to yourself, but determination as well. You do have to stick with it, and if you believe in something, then follow it through. With marketing, it's very subjective. So whatever you do, not everyone is going to like or agree with, and that's fine, because it's okay to make mistakes as long as you do something and then actually you review the results and then you go back and tweak it and evolve it further, then that's okay. And putting your hands up and saying I made a mistake, that's good too, because we're not, we are individuals, we're humans at the end of the day, and we do make mistakes. but mistakes, I think, are part of learning, and you probably learn more through your mistakes. I think I've learned more through my mistakes than successes. And it is about resilience as well. You know, I think resilience in today, more so than when I was, you know, kind of like coming out of uni, is you've got to be resilient. There are social can be very cruel, and the world is very cruel as well. So you just need to be resilient and not take things personally, but still listen.
Yeah, I think that's such a good, that you said so many good points there. I was almost tempted to sort of write them down for myself then as you were speaking. I think the one that I pulled out there was about the mistakes. And I think that particularly when you're younger, if you make a mistake, it kind of feels like the end of the world a little bit, like, oh God, I can't believe I was so stupid. Or, you can be really hard on yourself for what is probably in hindsight quite a minor thing a lot of the times. I know I've really beat myself up for booking a call in someone's calendar when they clearly had something already in the calendar, and it's just a kind of a slip of concentration or something along those lines. And I think, having some empathy with yourself and forgiving yourself and just thinking, you know what, this is a mistake. It's not going to be the last mistake that I make. It's certainly not the first mistake I'm going to make. The best thing I can do from this situation is learn from it and then move on, because I think if you sort of ingrain those mistakes in your own identity, you can really start to chip away at your confidence so much. And then when it comes to those scenarios then where you've got a chance to almost prove yourself and really shine and bring your creativity and curiosity and amazing skill sets to the table, because you're beating yourself up about those little mistakes that you made a couple of days before, that kind of undermines that ability then. And I think that's a really important message to give to anyone trying to break into any industry, is to be, give yourself a little breathing space, I think.
Yeah, I think you've got to be kind to yourself, and I think as individuals, our nature is not to go out and muck something up or do something wrong. We don't intentionally do it. Mm-hmm. Things happen, but it's not life-threatening. No one's going to get hurt or injured by it. Life is too short. We're all, I think, as long as you're true to yourself, you've got the right ethos, you've got the right values, you're trying to do the job to your best ability, then that's all you can do. But be honest as well. So honest and truthful. I'm a really super honest person, sometimes too honest, but that's who I am.
Yeah, I think it's all of these things that they kind of form the fundamentals of going into a role. I think in terms of advice for the next generation, it's just kind of root those fundamentals into who you are as a person, and then just allow yourself to grow from there. But give yourself time as well. Like nobody turns into the CEO overnight.
I think that's the thing. I remember, I went to uni but left after a year, did CIM diploma, certificate, and then a diploma in marketing. Knew I wanted to go into marketing, worked my way up. But there is that time where you've been in a position and you're relatively young and you think, oh, I should be a commercial manager, or I want to be to the board by the time I'm this age. It's experience, it's life experience, and you can be the best at your job, but sometimes it is about the experience that you bring, and you can't get that as a 23, 25-year-old. In the majority of cases within an organisation, absolutely you can within your own business and entrepreneurial, but within an organisation that's going to always be more difficult. But it is about just working hard, sticking with it and staying true. And I think as a woman, as a female in business, things are very different. So when I had children, 20 years ago, I was in an agency and went to my boss and said, oh, could I come back 3 days a week? And it was a no. Mm-hmm. And there was no real conversation about it. It was just kind of like a no, your agency side, it doesn't work. So that was it. I kind of, took a career break, and then went back to work when my children were 5, 6. I loved doing that. I loved that young stage, but then it wasn't as compatible, the motherhood and the having your career, as I think it's better today than it was then. Mm-hmm. So after my career break, you have to kind of you rebuild. So I think things are evolving and things are slowly getting better. But the maternity laws now and paternity laws are fantastic and very much more supportive from a female perspective.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point actually, because I'm sort of at an age now where, in so many years, motherhood will be something that's on the horizon for me. And I think it can be incredibly daunting for young women when they get to that point and they think, you know what, I'm really career focused, but then I've got this other part of me, which is, I want to be a mother and I want to have a family. How did you feel kind of taking that career break? Was part of you a little bit daunted by that aspect, or maybe coming back, were you a little bit nervous?
I think, I always wanted, I've always been really driven and very career focused. But then I've always wanted children and wanted to be the best mum. So because I wasn't as driven as some might be to almost, continue with my career and then try and get support in for the children, my natural was, okay, well, I'll stop. But I tend not to overthink things, because I think it's not great either. So it just kind of like happened. On reflection, I wouldn't have changed it, but then I think coming back into business when you have had that 5-6 years out, it's always going to be tougher. I came back in and I was within the same, I was kind of like stayed within toiletries and cosmetics, which is where I was, so I was able to get quite a senior job within that industry because I had so much experience within it. So then built my way up from there, and then took a change, moved to Cornwall. So again, I think it's those choices in life that we've made as a family, where you probably get to a position, but then you choose a different location. So I changed industry, so you kind of like stay on the same level. It's that difficult one to balance, isn't it? Because it's that industry insight and that experience. So I suppose for me as an individual, I've got broad experience across many different sectors, which is great for me now, because then it allows me to be marketing focused, product knowledge, and then also be quite commercial about partnerships and services that we might extend and offer. So I'm not just one dimensional.
I think that's a really important message as well, because so many young women, that career break, regardless of length, it will happen to women at some point in their lives. Unfortunately, you do still have to take a little bit of time off to give birth. I think that'd be quite difficult to be in a Zoom meeting while you're in labour. So it is something that, where there's a will, there's a way. But it is something that women have to consider. You need time for your body to recover, and if you've got a young family as well. But I think the message there is that, although there is a time, you will need to take some time out to kind of let your body heal and nurture your young family, is when you step back into business, then if you choose to do so, there's just, obviously it is quite daunting, and there will be natural, bouts of anxiety that probably come alongside that decision to go back into work as well. But alongside that, then, you've got this opportunity to develop your experience further, to gain more industry experience like you did across multiple sectors and broaden your portfolio. It's almost kind of like it's a fresh start without having to go back to who you were when you first left university or school. You're coming into it as a woman rather than as, maybe slightly less mature, I think is fair to say, when you first left university. So it's just an opportunity to grow further, and if you're in the right environment, and thankfully, as you mentioned, laws around women taking maternity leave are much stronger, attitudes are significantly better than they were. So I think for the next generation, and even for sort of my generation, stepping back into the workplace is not the daunting aspect that it maybe was previously.
No, definitely. And I think also COVID's helped further with Teams and remote meetings, and you can still work just as effectively from home, from home. So yes, you need some kind of a break, but you can do your job from home as well as you can do in the office. Although from a marketing and creative perspective, you do have that downside of missing that collaboration and that brainstorming and the creativity, but yes. And I do think your point about advice to next generations would be as well is don't be scared to make a move. Whilst you're young, you can experience different sides. So I was product focused, and then I went agency side. So you kind of like actually going from client to agency side. It's good. So all these moves, do broaden your experience and your understanding, and does set you up well for the future.
Absolutely. And I suppose on that thread then, perhaps we've already covered this, but if you had to give any sort of advice to a younger version of yourself, young little Juliet who's just left school and just finished the CIM qualification, what would that be?
It would be about being kind to yourself. Believe in yourself, don't give up, work hard, have that vision, have that ambition, have the drive, but don't, be you. And I think also from a female perspective, females can often be described as, bossy or feisty, whereas, from a male perspective, that would be described as assertive or driven. Just continue being you. If you're not bossy and you're not feisty, but you are being assertive and driven, and that's okay, as long as you listen to the feedback and have that empathetic ear as well, and understand and translate it. But yeah, work hard, be yourself, believe in yourself, and at the end of the day, life is too short. You've got to enjoy what you do. You cannot, I don't believe, do well at a job and progress and succeed if you do not enjoy what you do, because that's fundamental.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I never thought I'd enjoy insurance, and I do. I love where I work. When I first saw the ad, I was thinking insurance. I've been in health and beauty, toys, insurance, nah. But then just reading about the business, understanding their ethos and their values, and marketing. It's not just from that product perspective. It's from the services, and it's looking at your customers and understanding them, and then developing the solutions that they need. So you've got to enjoy what you do.
Absolutely. And I think that's such a fundamental thing, isn't it? You like you said, life is way too short, and I'm turning 30 next year, and I honestly don't know where the time has gone. So that absolutely, you're so bang on the money there, that life is too short to be in a role that you don't enjoy, or a company that you don't enjoy, or just have a life that you feel that you're not being fulfilled in. And perhaps on your point is that to be also open-minded about roles and industry and sectors. I think that perhaps when you're in school, and again, I hope this is different for the next generation, it can be, you almost look at things in very traditional mindset, like, teacher, policeman, all of these very traditional roles, and you don't think, oh, I could be a business analyst within an insurance company and I could love it. It's all these things that come with time and experience. And like you said, just being kind to yourself and giving yourself that opportunity to try things that maybe you didn't think of when you were younger, and go into sectors with that sort of mindset of, what, this isn't what I saw, but that doesn't mean it won't be the right fit for me. And I think you absolutely show that, because Cornish Mutual is a fantastic organisation that's done so much for, as you mentioned, what can be quite an isolated role. It's provided a sense of security and community, and that's something that you don't often get from a role, particularly from maybe a marketing perspective, is being able to provide that type of support for people. So I think that's absolutely the perfect way to kind of wrap up today. But thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
No, thank you, Sophie. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity to talk to you about such an important subject. So thank you.